Welcome to Prophy Plays. I'm Prophy, and you are tuning in to episode 12, that is Act 2, Scene 3 of Mies Kinson's story, where we are playing through using the Cepheus engine, doing it solo, using the Covetous Poets Solo GM Guidebook and Adventure Creator, or some combination of those words, I think. In any case, if you have not watched any of the previous episodes, I do recommend uh, checking out the playlist that has all the episodes for the series on it. If you want to watch the setup, I have episodes A, B, and C that are related to that. Or if you would rather just hop in at the story, episode 1 will give you Act 1, Scene 1, and I go from there. All right, so let's pick up where we left off then. So we have Mies Kinson and his friend Mara, who are here right on Piathos, which is the capital city of the sector that we are in. And we know that there's a problem here being created by some rogue AI system. However, Mies is not good at computers. He has literally no computer skill. He has some electronic skills, like the physical aspect, he's okay. But this is kind of out of his wheelhouse. But it's also very, very clear that the leadership here on Piathos does not want to deal with this problem. In fact, they couldn't find any mention of this problem anywhere when they did some searching of like news and the like. At the very least, but it's obvious that there's something happening here, simply because this planet of a billion people feels much emptier than it should. Right? That is, there's not nearly as much activity. When they came into the starport, I likened it to, it's like if you are staying in an airport overnight. There are people around, but it's definitely a lower level of activity than what you would normally expect from the location you're in. Okay, so last time we did a little bit of research in trying to solve this problem, and what we found some information about one of the people in the kind of advisory council, right, to the leadership here, and we found some information about them. Um, Now, our hope here, my original hope as I was thinking about it, was that this person might possibly be somebody that would be on our side in terms of advocating for AI being something that should be dealt with. That is not what we found. We, in fact, found that that was not true. Instead, we found this person was extremely corrupt and involved with some kind of like human trafficking ring or something like that. But at the same time, as we thought about it and as we rolled some more, we realized we're not really sure how accurate any of the information we're dealing with is, as we are getting our information through computer systems that could or could not be impacted right by this rogue AI system. So that is where we are right now. So we decided not really to follow up on that with just being too uncertain about what's happening here. So I'm going to go ahead and roll up randomly our next scene for our setup here. Right, so figure out what our prompt is going to be. Right, so our challenge scene prompt here, the first thing we need to do is find out what the challenge is. That's a 2d6 roll. So we roll these two dice here, add them together, and we've got a 9. Right, so 9 tells us the challenge is going to be, I'm going to jot this down. Challenge number 9 is to avoid danger or deal with threats. Seeing as we don't actually know any particular danger it's going to be that we're already in, I think dealing with threats is probably the direction it's going to end up going. Then I need a few other things. You see here we need action, we need thing, we need plot device, we need opposition, and we need location. These are the elements that you roll for every scene setup or scene prompt. Now, naturally, how much we use them is going to depend on kind of how we feel at the moment. So, see what happens. Here, okay, so the opposition chart is a D100 table, so we roll our D100 here. We've got O1. Oh, so that's an alien horde or a mad scientist as our opposition. So alien horde or mad scientist. Okay. Let's see what we do with that. Then we can skip a few because we don't need motivation, theme, or complication. We do need a location though. Let's go ahead and make this D1000 roll. So roll all of these together. We've got 281. 2D1 is a government center. Okay, that makes some degree of sense. Right. Next one, our action. So again, a D1000 roll. Rolling that, it's 059. 059 is going to be arrive. Then our thing, 809, which is actually going to be another page. 809 is here. Spirits or alcohol. Okay. And then finally, the last thing we need is a plot device. I kind of enjoy the plot device table. I don't always use what comes out of it, but I think it's probably the point where they're uh, trying to get as genre specific as possible. 038. So we've got accidents happen. An important NPC is killed or seriously injured as a result of a freak accident. Okay. All right. So here the problem is that we need to figure out what NPC is going to be killed. Right. So I'm thinking through some possibilities here. Right. So right now, this is one thing that I found. So I had Johnny Janand, who we know is missing. Right. Right. Our suspicion, right, is that uh, Janand was disappeared, right, by the head of the government being Bruce Cotta, who's a deceitful person, though not particularly skilled, um, that he was disappeared, and we don't know exactly why, like, except if the evidence we found is correct, it may be because of these corrupt practices that Janan was involved with, which is possible, or it might be something much more mundane, like you know, political opposition or something like that, which could be. Okay. So we don't know. We don't actually know what happened there. So those would be the two major NPCs that we have here on this planet that I'm currently aware of. I don't actually know about any other NPCs on this planet apart from Mara. Oh no. Well, that would be a dark turn, wouldn't it? All right. So I mean, maybe. So I'm going to make a list here. I'm just going to jot it down in my notebook off to the side. One thing I found is that um, I'm going to do, I think, an overarching kind of thoughts on how this particular campaign went after I resolved everything. But one of the things that I found is that, and this was something that I knew going in, this program that I'm using, Tabletop Simulator, it's very nice for having like all of my materials here somewhere that's a bit more organized than my literal tabletop. And things aren't going like my dice don't fall off the table, or if they do, I can just generate a new one. I don't have to go searching for it. That's kind of nice. But at the same time, find it is very inconvenient for keeping notes. And that is something that I originally got this idea from Jensen Vars, who has done some significant work in terms of creating solo materials. Um, and then he talks about how to set this up in the videos that he has on his channel. So certainly feel free to look that up. And one of the things that he said was that like this isn't a great program for taking notes. And with how many notes I like to take, I find that that is a bit of a burden. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and write down a few options. All right, so one option, right, would be that it's Johnny Janand. A second option is right now I'm not sure how we're going to start. So I think that actually this accidents happen, right? Somebody dying in a freak accident, one would thematically make perfect sense. And secondly, would actually give us a good starting point. So Bruce Cotta, and then the last one is Mara Sunes, which you see right here. Yeah. Mara being one of the first people we met, actually the first named NPC. All right, so I have my NPC list. So I'm gonna say if it's a one or two, It's going to be Giovanni, two or three, no, three or four. It's going to be Bruce, and five or six. It's going to be Mara. And let's go ahead and roll one of these d6s and see what's going to happen. Three, Bruce. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and set the scene. So at this point, right, um, Mies and Mara have been doing this investigating. They're trying to find some way that they can convince the leadership of this country, no, of this country, of this sector, of this planet, that they need to deal, right, with this rogue AI that we know is here. We don't know precisely what it has been doing. And I think that that is a challenge at this point. Uh, but it appears that nobody here wants to talk about it. You find very little information about it. And so that being the case, that does make it, I guess, more of a challenge. All right. Right. So I think what is going to happen is that maybe we are on our way, right, to the government center. Yeah, let's do this because then we're working in the location that I rolled, right? So we are on our way to kind of the center of the government, the Capitol building, right? And as we approach, we see that there is definitely a commotion going on. Something has happened right here. And what we know, right, because this is, so we already did. Okay, we are arriving. Oh, there's an action as we're arriving at the government center, our location, we have like there's all kinds of commotion going on here. Right. Why? Well, it's hard to say, but so me stop somebody. Now Mies is a pretty big guy. I think that when I um, you know, found out what his stats would be, he's like 6'4" or something like that. And so he's fairly tall right, and fairly muscular, that kind of thing. And because his strength is 12, which is the highest it could possibly be, um, at least as a starting character, right? So this big guy, say he tries to stop one of the security guards. And it says, right, so what is happening here? Now, I'm guessing the security guard probably isn't going to be able to say very much, just because if it is something this important, this is not something you're just going to announce on the street, right? So this is a stranger here, right? So let's go ahead and make a social check. I don't think the social check is going to do much for us because our social standing isn't very good. And you look, our social is a 6, so it's right in the middle, plus 0. I'm going to just go ahead and call this average, right? Which means then I have to roll an 8 or higher, right, to succeed. A 4, yeah, 4 definitely is not a success, right? So now we're then looking at the unfriendly side of the conversation chart. So we're going to go ahead and roll again to figure out what this security guard's attitude is. 7. So it's exactly in the middle of this chart, right? So this person's skeptical. Okay. So they're not going to be, particularly aggressive or anything like that, but they they are not looking to to help us at all. Okay, right. So there is perhaps an extremely short exchange, I suspect, um, where it's clear that the security guard is not really into the idea of answering any questions for anybody right now, and he has other things to do. So off he goes. Right. So sorry that like this is something that we can't talk about right now. Um, I'm sure there will be a press release at some point. Right. So that's about what we get here. Right? If you need to know more, wait. Is kind of the attitude. So I don't think that that's going to be good enough for me, Mara. I think we would rather not just wait. There's a little ant that is on the table. I'm set up in my garage because that's one of the quietest places in my house right now. Um, And you've seen this before if you watch my D&D with kids. I will set up in the garage with them. It's, hey, I have space, right? And then there's a tiny little ant that's crawling around next to my computer. Okay. Anyway, that aside, right, so we're told to wait. I don't think we want to wait. I think we want to try to sneak in. so we can get a better sense of what's going on, or do some kind of recon, right? So let's go ahead. Now, recon is one of the skills here that we could have. Yep, recon. Hey, and it's something that Mese is not terrible at, right? So like a zero means at least he's not taking a penalty, right? And I think maybe we're going to use it's going to have to be intelligence, isn't it? Right. So we're going to try to figure out kind of where can we go to try to get more information here, right? So figuring out who should we talk to or where should we locate ourselves, right? So that's the goal here. 8. Oh, good, 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 good. So we actually came up with some idea. What we realize is that people are definitely moving around a lot, but there are a number of entrances into this building. Not all of them are being particularly securely guarded at the moment, right? So I figure there's one of the back entrances. We can probably sneak inside. And so we do find this back entrance, right? Sneak in, right? To try to find out what's happening. Now, we of course do want to move somewhat stealthily, right through. Oh, stealth skill? No, it isn't. Okay. So I'm just gonna say this is all part of that same recon roll. All right. So we are working our way right in where we found kind of a back entrance, worked our way in without too much problem, and Mara and Mies are in a back hallway. Right. What I'm imagining here is that it's basically the equivalent of like when you stay in a hotel. Hotels really want you to use the elevator as much as possible, right? But they still have to have stairs, right? But the stairwells are just purely there functionally for like escape during a fire or something like that, right? So they tend to be very ugly places, not very well traveled either, right? So I'm kind of imagining that kind of thing. So we found kind of a back entrance that we could sneak into, and it was bring us into kind of this stairwell with it. It's not particularly used very often, right? So it's there purely for like maintenance safety reasons, and people aren't really particularly using it right now. So we managed to get in undetected. So I'm going to try to figure out what it is that we see in here. So I do have a couple other things here. So remember, we're trying to avoid danger or deal with threats. Right now, I think we might be avoiding danger, and that is the danger of getting caught, which could be an issue, right? So, okay, and then we also have spirits. So avoid danger, deal with threats, spirits and alcohol, and opposition, an alien horde, or a mad scientist. I don't see that we can immediately deal with a lot of these things, right? But okay. So we move in and we're just trying to listen, see what kinds of things are we hearing. Right? And what we overhear, because we've already established this in the fiction, right, is that Bruce Sakata uh, was in fact part of an accident. Right? Here's my idea. Right, so I'm thinking that like an easy thing to have happen is that an elevator fell, right? That kind of thing. Right? And since naturally Kata's office is on one of the higher floors, right? Then it fell from a fairly high floor, and he's not going to make it. So I think it's actually, I'm going to just say extremely likely that this is what it is. So as long as I roll a 95 or less, that is what has happened. At least what we're overhearing has happened. So 70, yes. Right. So what we just learned is that Bruce Tata, right, was killed. Oh, that's a question. Do we know that he was killed? Yes, yes. I'm going to say yes. Killed in an elevator accident. Accident. As all of the safeties failed, and he effectively fell to his death. Which this puts us in an interesting position, because that means that right now, the leader of this world is dead, and the leader of the advisory council is missing. This is real interesting. All right. Especially especially given kind of what we know is in the background here. Okay, right. So I'm going to say that Mese and Mara, once they find this information, they do make a hasty exit and leave. Right. So and after they leave, I think that they do actually, in a bar or something like that, right? They do see on effectively televisions, right, screens, that kind of thing, announcements about right, Bruce Cotta's death, and also about who is going to be taking over the government from this point. Right, so let's try to figure out who that is. So the question is it a man? Let's make it 50-50. 49, yes. So we need to look at our man list. Right, so we had here Bruce Cotta, Richie Ryfost. Okay. So he's going to be succeeded by a person by the name of Richie Rifost, because it's double F. So what do we know about Richie Rifost? I mean, obviously he's a politician, so he's on the advisory council, I assume. Right, those that were helping out before. Right, so let's go ahead and see if we can find out what his personality is like. So we have our personality. Oop, oop, went the wrong way. Here's our personality table. Right, so roll our d50, so we roll a d100, divide by 2, round up. Wait, round up. Is it round up or round down? Round up. Okay. It doesn't matter because it's even. Is 36 divided by 2 is 18. 18, so cold or fast talking. Okay. And so he's either cold or fast talking. Well, I could see this could actually go either way because the reason that they give you these ors a lot is so then you can fit. So you have like two different types of personality types. So for example, you can see charming or snobby. Right? So charming would be kind of a more positive thing, or snobby being in some sense almost opposite that. So you're careless or polite. Right? So we have this type of a contrast so that then you can fit whatever personality type fits for the type of character you're dealing with here. This is somebody who was previously unknown, right, who's going to be stepping into a leadership position, at least on an interim basis. Could they be cold? Oh, yes, that's very possible. Especially since we were led by a non-charismatic leader before. So that tells me that this is something where your ability to use and govern the bureaucracy is something that is very useful to have. So I'm kind of thinking of like Grand Moff Tarkin, that kind of thing. So a very cold personality. It seems to be effective within the system. At the same time, fast talking is possible. So this might be somebody who's further on the charismatic side. So I'm just going to go ahead and roll this as a 50-50. So it is, to just figure out which of these two is the more descriptive. So is Rafast cold? If I roll 50 or less, the answer is yes, otherwise fast talking. That's definitely a 50 or less, right? So we're talking about dealing with somebody here who's got a very cold personality. Okay, good to know. And then we also want to know their skill level. So let's go ahead and roll a d6 and subtract 3. So a skill level of 0, which means anytime they're doing anything related to whatever their specialty is. So in this case, anything related to politicking, that means that he's going to be operating at +0. So he's not super skilled. He's not terrible either, this makes some degree of sense. The leader before, right, also had a +0. So apparently we just don't have great politicians on this planet. It seems to be purely population is what makes us the capital here, rather than anything related to political skill, which maybe that can happen. All right, so I think that that is a pretty good place, right, for us to end the scene, right? So we have established now that Ruscata is dead, and that Richie Rifost is going to be taking the reins as far as that goes, right? So we want to see what is going to come next. Now, remember, we do have kind of in our overarching storyline, is this rogue AI that's the problem? We're trying to convince the leaders right, to do something about it, we now have a new leader. So it might make sense for us to try to see if we can get in contact, right, with this person, or at least learn more about them, right, or him, learn more about him to find out, right, what we could possibly do to convince him that this is something that's an issue. Okay. Although I'm thinking about two different paths I could go down actually now as I think about it. It's easier, I would think, to do the persuasion if we actually have some evidence of what this is doing, right? So I'm going to write that down. So the big question that I think we want to answer next time is what is the rogue AI doing? So what is it doing precisely that's causing problems? All right, and I'm just writing this down. Okay. All right, so we've got that written down. So now we know kind of what we're going to be looking at next time, doing a little bit more research into what exactly it is that the rogue AI has been doing. All right, so I think that this is a good place to call it. So this is Profi signing off.